one of the things that I tell people when they're in this curiosity phase of what's next and I'm looking for clarity is be really clear. Is this a purpose? Is this like a deep purpose that you're okay if no one buys it? Or is this a business? Hopefully most people know who John Maxwell is, one of the greatest speakers and writers and leadership coaches in the world. And he ended up hearing me speak. And the first thing when I met with him, he'd asked to meet with me afterwards, that he said was, I hope you've already written a book on this. Like, I just think we have such a brain dependence that we think that our brain needs to figure everything out. Well, our brain's not always right. How many times have you have an anxiety, stress, or worry about something, and like 99% of the time it's wrong? How much wasted energy do we give there? And that's a big mission of mine, is to help women especially through some of those things, because I think it paralyzes us.
Hey there. If you've been feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure of your next step, this episode is exactly what you need. Today, I'm sitting down with Kelly Resendez, a powerhouse executive at GoLeap, a multi-billion-dollar company. She's also a best-selling author and co-owner of GoBundance Women. Kelly is passionate about helping people break free from self-sabotage, reduce stress, and unlock an abundance mindset so that they can create the life they truly desire. I'm sure that resonates deeply with you. In this episode, Kelly reveals powerful strategies to boost your confidence, overcome imposter syndrome, and build a supportive environment that helps you thrive. She's also going to share her inspiring journey from navigating personal growth to writing her latest book with encouragement from leadership legend John Maxwell. You know, I'm a huge John Maxwell fan. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by self-doubt or unsure how to step into your purpose, Kelly's insights will inspire you to take action and own your potential. And if you're craving a powerful community to help you gain clarity, courage, and momentum, I'd love to invite you to be part of Wishmaker Circle, a small curated mastermind where you'll connect with people who are serious about moving from dream to done. You'll find the link in the show notes. So, hey, grab for coffee, take a deep breath, stay tuned, because this conversation is packed with insights you don't want to miss. Let's dig in. Kelly, I'm just excited to have you here today. I'd love to know what's bringing you like joy or excitement today.
Oh my goodness, Julie. Well, first of all, I just love starting my morning out this way. So thank you. Having like deep, rich, conversations where we can share our purpose is like, I think if we all started our day this way, we'd feel more, aligned in our life. And so what's honestly bringing me the most joy right now is that I am leaving on Saturday with my son and Give Power, a nonprofit that we work really closely with, to build a solar project in a remote village that's never had electricity or refrigeration before. So I've like been packing, and I'm just excited to get, this opportunity to number one, connect with the people, and then really tap into, I think a lot of times these people are happier than us, Julie, because they don't have the technology, they don't have the distractions, and really come away with probably some clarity about certain things that I'm going to focus on in my future, and helping people. One of my big areas of focus is to help people reduce self-suffering. And
Mhm.
so I think this next week's going to be really pivotal in doing that.
I love how going back to the simplicity really draws that out for us, and it allows us to just strip away all of the superficial that it can be so good, but it can become such a distraction. And like I find even in my ambitions to serve people powerfully, which I know that's your heart as well. It's like I can find myself distracted. So I love that not only are you able to just kind of go and simplify, but to do it from a posture of service towards others
Yeah,
really brings such a different element. That's so awesome. And with your son, how cool.
I know. I'm so excited.
Oh, I just love that. Kelly, we've been focusing on wishes and how we can take our wish and we can bring it to reality. We can have a dream, but we can actually tangibly do it. And
Yeah.
you are living evidence of that. And these wishes, they often leave clues. So I'm just wondering, when you look back over, the timeline of your life, what are some of
Yeah.
those clues that you've noticed? The signs that, like, okay, this is the way I should go, because you have evolved over the years.
Yeah. So I think it's important just to kind of share. I feel like I've lived two lives. One was pre-awakening and one is post-awakening. So the first portion of my life, I definitely was pretty unconscious. And what I mean by that is I wasn't aware that I wasn't my thoughts. My thoughts and my brain are really what dictated the majority of my life. And fortunately, 21 years ago, I started to realize that there was a different way, that my brain was something that I could use as a tool. It's a survival
Hmm.
mechanism. It's not a thriving mechanism. And so I had to realize that I was the one, like that deep, soul was the one that needed to start driving the bus. And so I love that you call it a wish. I call it desire in my world. And so what I started to recognize 21 years ago was that there was actually some structure I could I
Mhm.
could put towards living an extraordinary life. And so what I really have found is that you have to really have a solid desire. Now, that
Mhm.
desire, you might call it a wish. I call it a vision for how you want to feel, what outcomes you really seek, what type of lifestyle you want, really knowing that you have a desire. So, for your listeners, though, I want you to know if you're struggling with not having desire, that's actually not normal. And so, this is when you need to say, hey, something's off a little bit, because physically, we might have something going on. My hormones might be out of balance. I might have low vitamin D. My thyroid might be off. I might not be
Mhm.
sleeping enough. I need to really start taking care of myself, because when you take care of yourself and you trust that everything's always working out okay, you're going to have desire. So if you don't have desire, go get some deeper help there, because we're made for desire.
Yes.
And that's a big piece of it. The second piece that I've noticed, Julie, is that I have to have discipline. And so if I do have a
Mhm.
new desire, I need to start working my way into that and saying, what are the disciplines that I'm going to need? I just
Yeah.
finished my third book. It's in editing currently. And when I had the desire, of course, I had a desire to share my abundance practices, to share how to live an abundance, lifestyle. And then I needed to backfill it with the disciplines. Well, what do I need to do? I need to write 15 minutes a day for 6 months solid. And that's it. 15 minutes a day. I mean,
Mhm.
go look at your phone. Everyone's spending like 4 to 5 hours on their phone right now doing who knows what. But it was, I knew what disciplines that I really needed to be able to do that. And then the third piece is environment. And I love that
Mhm.
you created this community, because we can get far with desire, we can get far with discipline, but where we really like accelerate is when we have all three, and we're in the right environment. So what's my internal environment like, and what's my external environment like? Who am I surrounding myself with? Am I vulnerable enough to ask for help? Am I vulnerable enough to ask for accountability around some of the things that maybe I'm not as good at on my own? Do I need to set boundaries with people that are really affecting my energy level? And so that's kind of, for me, what I've learned is that when I have a desire, I've got to now follow through with the discipline and the environment to put myself in, to increase the likelihood that I'm going to actually be able to create it.
So, Kelly, you are like completely, and I already knew this, but I'm like, this is the language of a wish maker. So there are different dialects, right, of bringing wishes to reality, and in the substance, the foundation of it, it's central. And like, if we
Yeah.
want to bring something from a dream, from a desire, from a wish to fruition, to reality, to done, these are core principles that everyone must absolutely abide by. And so
Yeah.
I do have some different verbiage that I use with these,
Yeah.
right? And so, but it's the same thing. And so, what I would love to know is, we do have that person, that listener right now who is like, okay, I have this, I need to process. And you and I were talking off air, it's like sometimes we get to these points where we're not crystal clear. And so
Yeah.
clarity is something that we focus on at the beginning stages of things, the discovery and that clarifying that wish. You've gone through that process multiple times,
Yeah.
on your journey. So, what is your process for bringing clarity? Once you know and you've
Yeah.
identified, I have this desire, I have a dream, how do I clarify it?
Yeah. So, first of all, the one thing that I would say is that I used to believe clarity came from within, and it was like my thinking mind would bring it to me.
Okay.
And or like because my desire came from someplace deep and then I thought I had to figure it out. And
Mhm.
so that's what I used to think clarity was. And I really have kind of backed away from that. And so a lot of times what I do with desire, number one, not every desire is something that we should chase. Like that's the first thing.
Amen.
There are just some things that I'm like, you know what? That's a great idea and there's no market for it. You're going to spend 5 years working on something and you
Mhm.
don't have a market for it. And I always, and one of the things that I tell people when they're in this curiosity phase of what's next and I'm looking for clarity is be really clear. Is this a purpose? Is this like
Mhm.
a deep purpose that you're okay if no one buys it? Or is this a business? And so,
Mhm.
like my last book, Big Voices, was a purpose. The purpose was for my own healing, and it allowed me to do it. I had zero attachment to a business. I didn't need to sell books. I'm like, if one person buys the book and it makes an impact in their life, that's wonderful. The good news is it has made a bigger impact, but I was really clear because if I were to write it for a business, I would have written it differently and I would have been
Mhm.
more thoughtful about what my audience needed. And so you really want to be really specific about that. But what I would say is that when you have this desire in abundance, you have to be radically trusting
Yeah.
that the clarity will come. Forcing the clarity is something that will create resistance, fearing, just fearing, doubting, any of those things are definitely going to impact you too. And so, what I started to notice is that clarity started coming from people or opportunities coming into my life at a
Mm.
very timely moment. So I had set the intention, just as an example, in 2024, I set the intention that I was going to write another book. I was ready to start writing. I had missed it. I didn't know what I was going to write on. I was just kind of in this, I'm seeking clarity, I'm seeking clarity, and then I show up at an event in Tennessee and was speaking on I speak most on abundance mindset and lifestyle and practices that you can do. And John Maxwell was in the audience. And if anyone, I mean, hopefully most people know who John Maxwell is, one of the
Right.
greatest speakers and writers and leadership coaches in the world. And he ended up hearing me speak. And the first thing when I met with him, he'd asked to meet with me afterwards that he said was, I hope you've already written a book on this. And I was like, there it is. I started writing the next morning. It took me 6 months. John's actually helping me with the book now and is a dear friend and whatnot. So it's one of those things that like, had I been trying to figure it all out in my own mind, I might have waited forever. But I was so trusting that, whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, that there is this field of opportunity that exists outside of us that is also orchestrating to bring us to our highest good. And so that's kind of my practice now is that when
Mhm.
I'm really clear about what I'm not clear about. So I am clear. Like I'm in total
Yep.
clarity right now, Julie, that I don't have clarity about some things, but I'm constantly writing the questions out and
Mhm.
so when I'm journaling in the morning or meditating, I'm writing them out over and over again, and then I'm trusting that like, hey, something's gonna show up. There's gonna be something that starts to guide me down the path that's gonna uncover what I really need to feel next. So just, the biggest takeaway is take the pressure off yourself.
Oh my
Like,
gosh, yes.
take the pressure off yourself. When you're in just absolute, like, the book's already done. Like, that's how I felt. The book's already done. I know that it's coming. I just don't know what it's going to be on. And then allowing certain things just to guide me along that path and answer some of those questions for me. Like, I don't, I just think we have such a brain dependence
Mhm.
that we think that our brain needs to figure everything out. Well, our brain's not always right. I mean, how many times have you have an anxiety, stress, or worry about something, and like 99% of the time it's wrong? How much wasted energy do we give there? And that's a big mission of mine, is to help women especially through some of those things, because I think it paralyzes us.
It absolutely does, and to think also, though, that most of our life isn't logical and rational, and the outcomes that we assign within the logic reasoning part of our mind, oftentimes life experiences are completely different. I mean,
Yeah.
how many of us have, had that I'm going to have a happily ever after and found yourself, walking through an unexpected divorce situation, or
Yeah.
you had a I'm going to have this dream career and then you realize like I can't stand this as a profession for the rest of my life. Like, so we have these perfect plans in our mind and then life happens. And so I love that. I always think of when we hold a bird. I happen to have lots of chickens, and so like you can't hug a
So you're
chicken
holding
too
birds often. Yeah.
hard, right? Like you got to be
100%.
gentle with
Yeah.
it. And so I always think of that. Like the more if I'm feeling like I need to hold something so tight, there's something, then I have some internal work to do and I need to release and surrender that and just accept like the timing of the process. All things happen in the right time, in the right way. It's
Yeah.
coming for me. Everything's working for me, and putting ourselves in that path of action, right? And so that's where there's a belief, there's some faith, there's something there that says I'm trusting this process. And if we don't trust the process, then we find ourselves in almost like in a straitjacket,
Oh
right?
my God, it knocks. But
Ugh.
having those visuals, this is the most important thing. People think it's gonna end. Like, they think there's some point that we're gonna
Right.
stop overthinking, we're gonna stop being anxious, we're gonna stop worrying about our kids. It's like, no, it's just having the awareness to know that this is happening, and then imagining the baby chicken, right? If I
Mhm.
take my kids, who are now, almost 20 and 22, and I worry about them all the time, like, I'm holding them, right? If I just let go and trust, like, it ends up being such a better, situation. So you use that analogy. I use like, I'm at the beach and it's the most beautiful place ever, and I want to bring something with me, and I grab a handful of sand. If I squeeze the sand, I end up with nothing. If I let it go, I end up with a handful of sand, and now I can maybe take that with me and use it as some memorabilia. But like, I think where we all, like women especially, and I'm big, like, we didn't like really get into what I do in the world, but I really want to encourage anyone that's listening that, like, we don't know how powerful we are.
Oh
If
my
we woke
gosh.
up to our power, I just had this conversation a little bit ago. If we woke up to our power, we would realize that, like, any idea that the government is going to save us or create equality or any of these other things is nonsense.
Mhm.
Nonsense. We're the power. The more female leaders that are at the boardroom, the more female leaders that are at the top, the better decisions are. And it's just because of diversity. We think differently. We think wider, where men might think more narrow. I mean, we've got to do this. We also are the most powerful spenders in the world. Like, if people are complaining about what's going on in the oceans, it's like, quit buying plastic, ladies. Like, that's how simple it is. If you quit buying plastic tomorrow, like, we would actually be able to clean the oceans up. Or if we were more thoughtful about the food that we feed our kids, the fact that Europe has greater standards for American companies on the food that they import there is ridiculous. why don't we demand the standards? So, I mean, this is just one thing. I'm so fired up right now on the fact that we have this opportunity to step into abundance. And that's what we need to do, because so many of us don't even realize we've been in scarcity and victim, which is blaming
Mhm.
other people for the situation that we're in. And if we tap into this power, and I'm going to speak as loudly as I can about this right now, because I can tell you women are not raising our hand and aggressively networking and demanding a seat at the table. And we can do that. But I also know that there's some things that step in that way. And like those are the big things that I'm focused on. If you want me to share on those few things right now.
Well, yeah, I do, and this resonates because there's so many times where I've spoken with women, and I myself actually, and you know what, Wishmaker, you see me as, oh, Julie, she's got it all together, she's confident, and she goes after it. I do that, and within that, I face this.
Mm,
I always have to
yeah.
push through the
Yep.
the natural, and I think that this is hardwired into women where we just naturally are a little more reserved, hold ourselves back, we're nurturers instead of saying, and men who no, and you gentlemen, I appreciate you. So this isn't a slight, but sometimes there are so many times where I see people, gentlemen who are lesser qualified who are doing
100%.
exactly what I wanna
100%.
do, but it's because I'm not stepping up, raising my hand, saying, "I
Yep.
can do this." So please speak to that.
I want to go a little deeper into this. I don't
Yeah,
believe we're hardwired that way. I think that we've
conditioned.
actually been conditioned and
Okay,
programmed that way. Our
that's fair.
hardwiring is very deep. And then we are 3 or 4 and someone says, "Don't cry, don't speak up, not
Yes.
now, don't bother me," whatever it is, and we start to realize that, you know, we are programmed to be little people pleasers. And so
Mhm.
pleasing people is not going to get us to this next level. So, I believe in our hardwiring. We will do what's right for the people and the planet. I call this my world positive mission, which is just all about that. But when I look at the things that we're experiencing, number one, like I want to look at the things that we can measure so that we can move the needle on. Women are experiencing higher levels of stress than men. We have to learn how to care differently. I don't want you to learn how to care less. I want you to learn how to care differently.
Explain a little bit more about the caring differently.
Yeah. Well, number one, let's look at stress is one of the most devastating things that we can do to our families, to our physical being, to everything. We lose sleep, our hormones are off, like we're in fight or flight. Like it really is not a good environment for us to be in. And so we have to start to see this as stress is optional. I've just haven't mastered how to make it a choice in my life or not yet. And I still, even though this is like an area that I've dug into, I still can experience stress, but then I have the awareness and know like, man, I better put my emergency plan in place. But the care differently, we care so much about taking care of other people that I think when we release that and really just trust that like who we're being is plenty. We don't need to worry about
Mm,
it anymore. We don't need not everybody's going to love and like us. Like
yeah,
really letting that go will make a big difference. Like I'm going to do a good job. The end. Not I'm going
I
to do
love
a
that.
good job and I need to be affirmed or recognized. Like when we let
Mm,
those things go, it will make a big difference in our life. And I think some of the stress too comes from the second big thing, which is guilt around work life balance. I don't
mhm,
think that we're going to change things until women change things because at home, right, we know that we're still bearing a lot more of the responsibility. And there's a couple reasons why. Number one, a lot of women will say they're never going to do it as good as me. Well, you're never going to get ahead unless you let it go. Or maybe we're not as good at delegating, or, we haven't ask for the freedom that we need at work. So we are stressed and feeling guilty about where we are. When we remember we're the creators of our own reality, then we get to choose the way that we are. I'm an executive at a multi-billion-dollar company. And the first thing that I said to the founders 14 years ago was that, hey, I will not sacrifice my health or my children. And I need
Mhm.
flexibility. I want to be at the soccer games. I want to be in the classroom. I want to do these things. And it's worked really well because I was articulate about it and I demanded those things up front. And so the guilt can come from a variety of different places, but we want to let go of the guilt. And then you touched on the next one, which is that imposter syndrome. It's the self-doubt, it's the lack of worthiness, it's the voice that stops us from getting on the stage or applying or going after things. And just somebody that I'm a professional speaker and watching just the number of women not go after those speaking spots because they do feel a little bit like an imposter. Like I just believe that we've got to go after those things. And I wish that I could remove it. The way that I liken it is just I've accepted the imposter. It just sits shotgun in the car with me and we
Yeah.
keep moving. So you've got to teach yourself how to take action in spite of it. And then the last piece is the overthinking, which kind of goes along with all of them. Like if we could really reduce a lot of the overthinking and get into action, it would make a big difference. And I know if we can really work through some of those things, that's that internal environment, what's going on, that we will start raising our hand. We'll start going after those roles. We'll start the business that we've always wanted to, or the startup, or ask for more funding or the raise or whatever it might be, because that's the only way it's going to change. We are the only ones that are going to save us.
I'm just yes. Yes, yes, yes to all of this. Cannot agree more with all of that. And it's so interesting, even going to the guilt. It's it's really fascinating. It's something that I worked through some years ago. Every once in a while it comes up and I'm like, "What? Why are you here? Why are you here? I have no reason to feel
Yeah,
guilty." Like who's doing all there's no reason, but it's interesting how it surfaces and it is prevalent. I know in a lot of people in my circle where, I can see like, oh, they're on that trajectory of working through and processing through that whole
yeah,
guilt of a lot of people call it mom guilt. It's so much more. And I'm like, well, it doesn't my husband actually said, he's like, well, dads have guilt too. And that, like this is not just a you guys type thing. So it's an interesting part of where just as humans, I love how you said, like who we're going to be is enough. And so often it seems that people are looking for that approval, which is what you spoke to next. You said, like, I'm going to do a good job, the end. Like, but a lot of times we're still looking for that external approval. And we don't just want the participation trophy. We actually want to be, I think, Kelly, I think it's that people want to be seen.
yeah.
I
I
think it's
agree.
that deeper part where it's not I wanna be recognized for my achievement. It's like, "But do you see me? Do you see that I'm a cool person?"
Yeah. And I think the where that has to start though is when we look in the mirror.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's where it starts. If we look in the mirror and I'm like, "I see you. You're doing a great job." Like, yeah, maybe
Mhm.
you gave a 7 out of 10 yesterday, but, like, you still showed up and you didn't sleep good the other night. I'm not making excuses for myself, but I think in order to be seen, we have to have like, it's an inside out job. Like, when we desire to be seen, like, that's where it already is creating the resistance, and it's
Mhm.
challenging to get there, and I think it's gonna be all of our lifelong work. Like, I've been at this personal growth thing for 21 years, and I still feel like I'm in kindergarten sometimes, and it's like, all of a sudden, something will hit me and be like, "But I thought I was so far beyond that," like, but maybe I wasn't outside of my comfort zone. I got comfortable in what I was doing, and then the minute I pushed myself out, it became a little bit more. So I think that it's very complicated, but I also believe, when I help women separate like worthiness from confidence, from
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, then it helps you kind of be able to come up with a strategy. So the first thing that I would say is Worthiness is our birthright. There's nothing, and this, my neuroscience coach has engraved this in my mind. I have nothing to prove, explain, or justify. Period.
Mm,
That's it. I am worthy. The end. No more questions asked, right? I have to work on that and embody that on a daily basis. My morning ritual supports it. My meditation supports it. My self talk supports it. Like I have all of those strategies that are helping me while I heal this desire to prove my worth. Right. And I was
mhm.
classic pleaser, like a recovering perfectionist. So I had that down and modifying the things that I was doing to make somebody else happy or whatnot. And so it is definitely something that I work on. Where confidence is a discipline for me. Confidence
Mhm.
is a skill that I'm constantly looking to increase. So my discipline is that I have to constantly be pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. And it's a discipline. Like whether it's going to new places, doing new things, asking for business, whatever that might be, like what are the disciplines that you could create? Even confidence in speaking up in a relationship and having a tough conversation or communicating about something that you maybe wouldn't have done so before. Those are all disciplines that build confidence. And then the last piece, imposter syndrome. I see imposter syndrome as the voice. And so the voice normally translates into very low level psychological defenses like projection, avoidance, like some of those things, procrastination, like the ones that are really easy to spot. So, like, I see imposter syndrome translate into self sabotage. And so, when I divide them instead of lumping them all together, then I can really
Yeah.
be strategic about how I elevate myself because what we know to be true when it comes to influence, and that's what most of us like, I want to use my voice to influence the world in a more positive way
Right.
is all energy. If energetically, like you wouldn't have me on a guest. I wouldn't co-own a women's mastermind. I wouldn't be an executive. I wouldn't be paid to be on stages. I wouldn't do any of these other things if I didn't have the energy that was like exuding from inside out, right? Like,
Yes.
because otherwise it would just be like I'm a overconfident, female executive that most people don't like, which is
Mm.
not that's not who I wanna be. I wanna be that person. I wanna be the safe energy, the loving energy that is authentic and really on a mission to help women increase joy and reduce self-suffering.
I love all of that, and I love how you're breaking apart, worthiness, confidence, and imposter syndrome, and even imposter syndrome further. But I've spoken about confidence so many different times on this podcast in so many different capacities. And it's such an action, it's such an inside out job. And
Yeah,
so many times people are looking for the confidence to come from the outside. But I love how you said it's a skill. I've never heard it put like that. And I think that that's very refreshing and it provides a really powerful perspective because if you're listening and you're feeling shame, doubt, fear, insecurity, imposter syndrome, all these things that can be debilitating to us. Well, when we know that confidence is a skill, it's just like going to build the muscle at the gym. It's just
that's it.
like changing the
That's it.
nutrition so that you're taking care of your body chemistry in a better way. I think that closes a gap in a lot of minds. And again, not to go back, we talked about the logical part of the mind and the feelings, the internal state earlier. So, I mean, we don't want to rely too heavily on the external, but just to know that
Yeah,
I'm a recovering control freak. So I have to overtly state that,
yeah,
but to know that we do have influence and we can build that confidence. But I echo what you're saying. Confidence comes on the other side, on the cusp. It
yeah,
comes in the zone of discomfort. And we've spoken about this recently, Wishmaker, you don't have to be like, here's your comfort zone if you're watching on YouTube and it's like way out, somewhere by
yeah,
Pluto. It could just be on the perimeter, but you have to be there. You
yeah.
have to be out in that discomfort.
Absolutely. And I think even with confidence, it can be dedicating time to learn more about
Mhm.
things and then applying them, right? So like if you're
Yes.
struggling in your relationship, it could be I'm going to learn how to approach a conversation differently and then I'm going to apply it and then see how it works. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends what it is. But like that also can be a confidence building skill that you're just trying new things. And it is so magical. Like part of the abundance formula that I really speak to and write on is that so many of the things that we want to master, when we start teaching them, just really gets us to this next level. And so part of why I speak on abundance or do podcasts or get on stages, like I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to the
Mhm.
audience, because I'm holding myself to a standard, and I'm holding myself to this place of like my brain is being rewired every time I say these things. And so if I'm complaining about what's going on in the government, or the gender equality or this or that, like my brain is saying this is more and more important to her. I need to show her more of this. It's more and more important. And now all of a sudden I'm going down a negative scarcity route versus oh my God, women are the most powerful people on the planet. We, like, literally, if we all decided tomorrow to stop buying Kraft macaroni and cheese the way that it was like the way that it's made here, and demanded the same standards on what they do for other countries, it would be done in a week. Boom.
Yep. Yep.
Why don't we realize how powerful we are? Like, that's part of what I want women to feel. But the challenge is right now that power feels heavy because we carry so many things on our shoulders. We carry the weight of the world of aging parents and kids and our spouses and our friends and all these things. And like, we just got to let it go. Like, if we just let the worry and the stress go and
Yes.
just felt like, what am I going to do? One little thing today. One thing today. What can I do? One thing today that's going to make a bigger difference. Well, I'm going to stop buying plastic, or I'm going to stop doing this, or I'm going to start, having dinner with my family every single night instead of feeling guilty about it. Like, what are those things that we can really do?
And we do have voice, and we do have say. One thing I say often is, "What would I do if I knew everything was gonna turn out okay?"
Yeah.
And, like,
What would I
behave
do?
accordingly. Just
Yeah.
act as if it's going to turn out okay, because it does turn out
Yeah.
okay, and if we and it
Absolutely.
influences our choices and our decisions. If we're going from, like you've been talking about, if your approach is from that scarcity apparently, scarcity and the fear base, if our approach is
Yeah.
stemming from there, our decisions are also stemming from there. But if we
Yeah.
are coming from that posture of abundance, then we're going
Yeah.
to approach our decisions and it's going to be reflected. So that influence. But you made me smile when you were talking about we'll see more of that, because I think about, social media, and I do a lot of study of, social media and algorithms, and it's like our reticular activating system, our RAS, is so much like the algorithm of social media. Like,
That's
it's
all it
going
is.
to show us more
That's
of
all it
what we
is.
want.
Absolutely. But if you don't know how your brain works, one of the things that I speak a lot on is that it's like the first cell phone you had. Like, you need to install a new operating system. It really just cares about your survival, and it's going to do what you tell it. It's gonna do what it's always done if you don't. And so you've survived this long overthinking, stressed out, guilty, you name it, powerless, expecting someone else to rescue you. It's gonna keep doing that. And I just feel like life's too short. I think most people have an awakening when they can no longer tolerate the situation that they're in, or someone passes away, or they lose somebody that's close to them. And I want to help awaken women before we get there,
Yes.
and awaken men too, because this is a collaborative effort. When I talk about my Be World Positive mission, it's just more about making better choices for the people in the
Mhm.
planet. If we just did that daily, if we just were a little
Yeah.
bit more thoughtful daily, like what's good. I look at parents, and I don't know how old your kids are, but simple things that we could do that are gonna last forever. Like, we went through, and I think part of why we're all jacked up in California, at least, is that when I was growing up, they ran this whole self-esteem mission. Well, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
notice, I didn't use self-esteem. I think it's absolute bull. I don't know if I can say that on your podcast or not, but like we maybe over affirm. And it's like, no, it's like if you teach a child to push themselves outside of their comfort zone and then encourage them to feel the celebration internally, like, yeah, I can be happy as a parent, but more importantly, how do you feel about yourself? Like, what did
Yes.
that feel like? Like, how are you feeling in it? You know, the conscious parenting path, which I'm so grateful to Dr. Shafali. If you don't know her, she's an absolute, oh
She's
my
back there
gosh.
in one of those
Yeah.
files.
Yeah. She's a dear friend of mine. And I mean, she saved me because I was overlaying my own my own challenges on them. And the minute that I pulled back and just focused on how can I grow up, how can I quit sharing my opinions with my kids and let
Mm,
them, you know, figure out a lot of those things, like holy moly, I raised two extremely conscious little beings and it's amazing.
mm.
You know, they challenge and teach me daily, but it's the intention. That's like the one overarching theme to this conversation for me is that we need to be intentional about what we want to create. And in your world, you call them wishes. In my world, it's, you know, your desires or whatever it might be. It all comes back to that. Like
Yeah.
life will just happen unless you take ownership and realize like we really are the creators of what's going on in our lives and in the world.
That's so crazy, and it's just that, we were going to have this conversation today. I literally wrote down, "If you don't have a plan for your time or talent, someone else does." That was like a message that I put into my
Completely.
Google Keep this morning. It's like, so you have the gift of these heartbeats and this little blip on history's timeline, one in, one in multiple millions, billions,
Yeah.
quadrillions, that you're
Yeah.
even here. So why not take the risk and do the thing? So I
Yeah.
want to ask, oh, actually, I want to share this with you selfishly. I'm going to share this with you that that Dr. Shafali's book was one of the most, it was such an eye-opening book. And this is why it's really important that you read outside your comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
And so someone's methodology or their perspective or their worldview, maybe you're nervous and you're like, oh, I don't know that that totally aligns with how I want to do things. Like, read it anyway, and see where there are gaps, or see where there is
Yeah.
a distorted perspective, or see where you need some healing. Because I noticed
Yeah.
that as I read her work, I was like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
challenging me, and this is allowing me
Yeah.
to form my own perspective. So even this morning, my teenage son, he's taking care of it. I stay out of his business at school. We have criteria, like, this is what you have to do if you want to play your video games, my guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's like, he's advocating for himself. I'm not in there doing
Right.
it for him, and so it really does raise, not just, people who are confident and capable, but like you're saying,
Yeah.
they're very conscientious. So I just
Absolutely.
love
And
it.
it's challenging because again, when we go back to our most basic forms of psychology and how we damage ourselves, the projection, the expectations, some of these things is what we repeat over and over with our children, right? It is so
Yes.
much easier for me to focus on what my kids could be doing different than what I could be doing different.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
so much easier to focus on logistics than it is to have deeper, meaningful conversations. And so you
Mm,
just have to kind of take a temperature on where these are, and it's never too late. It's never too late to be able to make a shift. And you know, and the one thing that I always wanted to like bring into my kids life is like you're a unique masterpiece. Like you're uncomparable. Like you can't
mhm.
compare yourself to other people.
Yes.
And you know, I didn't want them to have FOMO, which is what I had my whole life. I did so many things that I really didn't want to do because I didn't want to miss out. And so when you really are intentional about like what are some of those bigger values and attributes that I want to raise my kids with rather than just trying to be involved in everything, it makes a big difference because you know what I would kind of do with my kids is if there was a challenge, I would just say like, well, what does love say? Like, what does love say you should do? Or what does
Mhm.
integrity say? You know, I isolated things down to a few big values so that it just
Yeah.
made it more simple for me to be able to do. But again, it's the intentionality. Like, we raise kids and then it just happens and you're like, "What?" And rather than like, I'm gonna be really intentional about I want them to be, independent thinkers. I want them to know that they're, just capable of doing whatever it is. And I'm not gonna over affirm them. Like, if they didn't do a great job, I wasn't gonna say you did a great job. Like, you want me to be honest with you, or you want me to just like fill your tank up and give you I mean, who came up with the idea that every kid needs to get a ribbon? It's
I
like, no, there's one winner. There's one. There's one
it's
winner. That's it.
there
No,
there is one, and it's
it,
okay.
yeah,
Sometimes you're
yeah,
the
I
winner and
appreciate you
sometimes
trying.
someone else is.
Yeah, but you're not gonna be like, if you come in like 12th place when you're a swimmer, the parent should probably say, like, my kid's probably not gonna be Michael Phelps. I don't want to treat him
Right.
as such, right?
And that's okay. It's
That's
a
okay.
it's
Yeah,
okay. It's okay.
that's okay.
That really comes this concept of what you're sharing really comes like full circle back to where we started of like you must know what that desire is and what that dream is, that wish is. You have to identify it because there are so many options out there.
Yeah,
So there are many different
so
ways
many.
that we can raise our kids, many different activities, different there's so much optionality even going to the very initial part of the conversation, in a first world country where we have opportunity and we have
Yeah,
access to these wonderful tools that can become powerful distractions, when we start closing down those tabs and we start just like niching down and becoming very clear, we open up the
yeah,
path to opportunity.
yeah.
This Kelly, this has just been absolutely a phenomenal conversation. I've been looking forward to it,
Me
and it's nice to meet you in
too.
person. And I would love for you to share, just like there's Wishmaker Circle, Kelly is, a co-founder of a very powerful mastermind. And I'd love to just give you an opportunity, if you don't mind, to share about that.
Absolutely. So, GoBundance Women, honestly, I feel like it was a selfish endeavor from my side being one
Right.
of the co-founders. It was just sheer loneliness, Julie. Like,
Yep.
I think a lot of us feel like we're too much and then make ourselves smaller. And so
Yeah.
this is a community of definitely women across the nation in Canada and other places, of just women that are growth minded, that want to support and cheer one another on. Most of us have a lot of ands in our life. Like, I'm an executive and I write and speak and do other things. That's very common within GoBundance Women. And so I do encourage you guys to check it out. If there's one thing that I can tell you, is that finding an environment, the Wishmakers or GoBundance Women or any of the other ones that are out there, that's really where I think community is going to get us to this next level of female leadership. And I want to encourage you to take that responsibility in doing it. So I do have a little free gift for you that, really digs into overcoming self-sabotage and the top ways that we do it. So it's a 3-part series that you can go to downloadthepod.com, and I'm sure, Julie, you'll leave it
We'll
in your
link it.
show notes. Yeah,
Yes.
as well. But you can also check out GoBundance Women or beworldpositive.com and check out what I'm up to. It's definitely, I am radically committed right now to, helping make a dent in these absolutely pathetic numbers that we have for venture capital and female founders, in our CEO and C-suite numbers as well. And I think that if we all work together, that there is definitely going to be some major impact that we can make in the next few years. And just blessed that you're doing this. Like, huge kudos to you. It does. People listening probably thought about it, and we've got to just start taking action towards the things that we really believe in.
We absolutely have to take action, and that that is the only thing I'd ever feel guilty about and regretful of, is if there was something that I was called to that wasn't going away, that wasn't that, you and I tons of ideas every day. I'm like, well, there's like $5 million separate $1 million
Yeah,
ideas, right? Like it's okay, just let those go. But the ones that keep coming back, take action on them.
yeah.
Kelly, thank you so much. Now, Wishmaker, go and connect. Go and download the free, get rid of self sabotage. Most of us are doing it. And, that's not just ladies, that's gentlemen also. And
Oh,
so
what?
it's a human thing. It's just, and especially how we've been raised over the last few generations, like, let's step into a new reality. Let's create that new reality because we have choice in that. So, Kelly, thanks again. And you know
Thank
what,
you,
Wishmaker,
Julie.
thank you for joining me for this very first guest episode on the Julie Holly Show. Now, remember, as you go through your week, let's go from dream to done.